Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, a special look at carbon pricing. We'll find out why some people think it's the best way to reduce carbon and hear why others think it's the wrong approach. Plus, how do Canadians feel about the price on carbon? A pollster weighs in. That's all ahead. But first, when it comes to a price on carbon, where does Canada fit in? Here's a look by the numbers. According to the World Bank, 24% of the world's carbon now has some kind of pricing on it, with 75 carbon pricing instruments globally. That includes much of the EU and China, but excludes the world's largest economy. The U.S. has no national carbon pricing, though California and Washington state have their own efforts. And while there are pricing mechanisms in place, the World Bank say they are not measuring up. Less than 1% of global emissions are priced at or above the range recommended to limit temperature rises. The price put on carbon ranges wildly, from a high of Uruguay's $167 per metric ton to a low of 81 cents in Argentina. Canada's in the middle of the pack at about $60. In Canada, there are two types of prices on carbon: the fuel charge levied on consumers and the industrial price charged to companies with large emissions or which trade globally. The revenue from carbon taxes passed $100 billion in 2023. More than half of that was used to fund climate-related initiatives. Efforts so far have been contained within countries, with the exception of a few trading systems, but the EU has a carbon border adjustment mechanism that could make carbon output a big business issue for those selling into or buying from that market. Canada's carbon price is currently scheduled to increase annually by $15 a ton until it reaches $170 by 2030, a level that is above the $50 to $100 US that experts say is required. A price on carbon is widely accepted by economists as one of the most efficient ways to measure the harm done by CO2 and to encourage behavioral change. But is it the best route, given that it comes with a real cost to consumers and the economy? Chris Ragan is founding director of the Max Bell School of Public Policy at McGill University and the former chairman of the Eco-Fiscal Commission. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
So this is obviously a touchy subject for many, but to put a price on carbon is one of the efforts globally to try to help countries and businesses and consumers get their arms around reducing the thing. What's your take, first of all, on that as a mechanism? Does it work?
Well, I think a carbon price is a great example of a policy that is economically the best way to do something. But as we are learning, it may not be politically the best way to do something. It has its challenges for sure. But I continue to believe that a carbon price should form the core of our climate policy, basically because it is the lowest cost way to reduce emissions. And I think in a world where we are struggling, frankly, to promote Canadian prosperity, I think we have to be really mindful of the cost of policies. And other policies may be less unpopular, but they will end up costing more, and that's bad.
Of course, there is a sort of a short-term nature to all of this, including anything that adds cost to people's current existence will be unpopular and hard, frustrating for those people. Is there a better way to go than the one Canada has pursued, which has been a pretty straightforward price on per ton of carbon? Is there a more effective way that another country has found?
Well, I don't think so, actually. I actually think the Canadian federal policy, what we call the federal backstop, is a quite well-designed and a coherent package. There is the retail carbon price, if you like, that has rebates attached to it that have not been well understood or well explained by the government, but they are designed to make sure that people's purchasing power is not negatively affected by the carbon price. And then the third part is the industrial carbon pricing, which is much more technical and geeky and kind of behind the scenes. But those three things, the retail carbon price, the rebates, and the industrial carbon price, create a very coherent package. Now, on top of that, Canada has done some other policies. And my concern actually is that the more you go down the route of introducing other policies, the less you will rely on the lowest cost policy, which is the carbon price. And I'm not suggesting that they do nothing other than carbon pricing, but I do think that the carbon pricing should form the core of the policy.
Do you think it matters that we haven't seen material impact from the carbon price? In other words, people can't say, oh, we have reduced our footprint because we don't like this tax.
Well, emissions have fallen in Canada since the introduction of the carbon price. I mean, other things have happened as well, but we're still in very early years of the carbon price. And I think one of the communications challenges, I suppose, for a carbon price is, people say, well, why is a $20 or a $50 price per ton gonna change my emissions, gonna change my behavior overnight? And the truth is, it's not going to change your behavior overnight. What we're trying to do is, every year the carbon price goes up by about $15 per ton, which is about 3.3 cents per liter. So these are fairly gradual changes. But after 5 and 7 and 10 and 15 years, I think that's going to make a significant difference. And so we're very much at the beginning of that. And again, because it's I think a well-designed policy. I mean, I guess what I would recommend is that the government keeps that policy in place. But of course, as you know, it has become a political flashpoint.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Chris Ragan is former chair of the Eco-Fiscal Commission. Coming up, there are strong feelings on both sides of the carbon tax debate. We'll explore.